You are listening to Are You Ready Radio with Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. Find Are You Ready on Facebook and Instagram at Are You Ready Radio. You can also visit our home on the web. Just go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the program's link. If you missed the live show, you can listen to the show's archives on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Deezer, and many more, including our home on Spreaker. When a disaster happens, are you ready? Do you have the supplies you need to keep you and your family safe and survive? The Zombie Outpost store in Wilmington, Ohio, at Cedar Creek Flea Market, stocks quality gear you need to be ready for the next emergency or even a camping trip. Visit zombieoutpoststore.com for location and hours. Check out our assortment of essentials you need when the next disaster happens. Go to zombieoutpoststore.com. Get 10% off at checkout when you mention Are You Ready Radio. Be ready and be prepared.
In this digital society, making connections is quickly becoming a lost art form. Yet, if you are a small business owner, building your network is the only way you can get ahead. Can these skills be learned? You bet they can. Read Nose to Nose Networking. No-nonsense, in-person networking tips from a master. Who's the master? Well, who better to teach networking and friend-building skills than a golden retriever? The author, Melanie Hope, takes the antics of Abigail and translates them into the human experience. Through Abby, you will learn how to set your intention, build a network, and get into and out of conversations with grace. If you love the Dog Abby segments on Counterculture-Wise Radio, you will love Nose to Nose Networking even more. Find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hard copy, Kindle, and Nook. Visit counterculturewise.com for direct links.
Greetings and salutations, Counterculture-Wise listeners. This is Maximilian von Riegelbieser inviting you and yours to listen to me and mine. Join me, my sisters Abby and Fritzy, and my weekly guests, my father Jim and Mumsy Melanie, for Counterculture-Wise.
Max, it's not your show!
And we're not your guests, Max. We're the hosts. You may want to rein it in a little bit, buddy.
Very well. Tune in every Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific at counterculturewise.com for our amazing live variety show. You can even chat with us. If you ask me, though, it should be called Counterculture Max.
Counterculture Wise! Radio with heart in mind.
Got a spare tire around that waist? Is your muffin top over the top? Do you binge eat uncontrollably? We are the government and we are here to help you. Here at our free FEMA weight loss camp, we have numerous ways to help you shed those unsightly, unwanted pounds. FEMA, or Fatties Eating Mitigated, automatically has a communist-style weight loss czar that specializes in centralized weight loss planning and communal extended fasting programs to shed that fat away in no time. Skin and boned means extra toned is the motto. Just remember, there is no way you can do it on your own. We will forcefully assist you into compliance. Failure is not an option in this utopian wonderland. How fantastic. Typical workout regimes include digging ditches and restocking them with dirt, building railways and more. Get life skills while you get lean. How do you join? Simple. Recite the Constitution in a public commons or violate the Patriot Act that includes simple misdemeanors. It's really that easy to get your own fenced-in slice of Americana. Stop being a fatty. The state is your daddy.
If you like what you are listening to, we appreciate your support. A small contribution from you, the listeners, can continue to help bring you such content and help keep things going here, even if it's just $1 a month. keep in mind, though, in the spirit of prepping, we believe in redundancy, so it's better to have more than one, but every little bit helps pay the bills. Go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the Support the Show link. You can make a one-time or monthly contribution in any dollar amount. And again, thank you for your support and listening. Are You Ready is an NP Media Group production and is the official broadcast of the Zombie Outpost in Wilmington, Ohio. The views and opinions expressed during this broadcast are those of the host and not that of the station, advertisers, or its affiliates. You are listening to Are You Ready Radio with Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. You never know when an emergency is going to happen. Disaster can strike at any time. Whether stuck on the road, riding out a power outage, escaping a natural disaster, or surviving a doomsday apocalypse, what would you do? No matter the scale, whether 1 hour or 1 year, will you survive? You're about to hear what it takes to be prepared. Now ask yourself, are you ready? Have you ever heard the term prepper? What comes to mind? Some of you may think it's a crazy guy with a bomb shelter and an old army truck parked on the front lawn. Well, prepper simply is a person who is ready for almost any emergency, small or large. It's no different than on a rainy day taking an umbrella with you when you leave your home or putting a coat on when it's cold outside. So maybe you think you're prepared for a brief time in that environment. But what if a few minutes turn into a day or even a year? I'm your host, Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper, and I'm going to use my over 25 years of prepping and survival experience and knowledge in this program to help you and your family prepare to handle almost anything from a small event, from a doomsday apocalypse. So get ready, because I'm prepared to enlighten you to seriously think, prepare, and answer the question, are you ready? And I want to hear anything you have to say about the subject, whatever you may have to offer. You see, it's important that we share our knowledge with each other, learn from each other, and help each other out. You see, the more prepared those around us are, the better your chances of survival will be when a disaster happens. Now, I'm sure everyone has heard the term zombies. Well, those are just those that are not prepared and come after whatever you have. Well, the call-in number is 513-815-6336 if you want to be a part of the show. Again, that's 513-815-6336. Also, check out our live chat room on Spreaker. That's Spreaker, Spreaker.com. Just go to the Are You Ready show, search it right there in the search bar. You can get there live through the website, nickpiercemedia.com. I post exclusive content on the home of Are You Ready on Facebook and on Instagram. Just go to Are You Ready Radio. You can interact with other members of the prepping community before, during, and after our broadcast. So share your knowledge. Now, in this episode, I'm really going to focus on the EDC Smartphone. Last week's episode about the EDC, I talked about ways to use your smartphone in your EDC beyond what you normally use it for, and want to make this whole episode on that to expand on it a bit more and talk about different survival apps that are out there that we didn't have time to get into last week. Now, EDC, if you remember, is your everyday carry, a small, little, maybe pocket-sized kit that you keep on you with just a few basic essentials that you would use to get to maybe your get-home bag, get out of a quick little emergency situation, and very small, hopefully pocket size, and like sometimes you can put on a little pouch on your belt, a little kit maybe in your purse or laptop case, briefcase, whatever you would normally have on you, or even your backpack. The EDC is some of the very basic items that you may need, and that can then be added to your get-home bag. Maybe your EDC is used to get to your get-home bag, and your get-home bag, of course, being used to get to your bug-out bag, which go back through next week's episode and go through all that just to kind of get a background of the EDC, and we discussed in depth about building your EDC and different gear and stuff you want to keep in there. But this week I want to focus on the different survival apps that are out there and ways that your smartphone is very valuable as part of your EDC. I'm sure most of you listening normally think of, or maybe don't normally think of your cell phone or smartphone as your way out of, we'll say, a fit hits the shan situation, or surviving in the wilderness, or foraging nuts and berries and hunting in the wild, or surviving the next end of the world as we know it situation. So last week, like I said, I mentioned your smartphone is capable of storing quite a bit of critical or even crucial information. Only problem is most people are unaware of that. So to recap and give you a few examples that I mentioned last week is here's a few things that you can save offline. Offline meaning that you don't need to be connected to your cell service. You don't have to go to the cloud to get it. It's stored internally on your phone. You don't need Wi-Fi or anything. It's all stored on either your internal memory or an SD card that's inserted in your phone, and preferably an SD card because you typically have a lot more storage on that. You don't want something that you need to rely on a 4G connection to navigate things or look up information manuals and books and stuff. So you want it stored directly on your device. Now, for Apple users, this may be a bit difficult because a lot of information is all stored on a cloud. But in most Android and Microsoft phones, you are able to store directly onto the phone quite easily. I don't know much about the Apple platform, but you can. I'm sure that there's ways to store stuff directly on the phone that you don't need to access through a cloud, and you don't need signal service or internet to be able to do that. Now, one important thing that is very popular to store on your phone before I get into all these survival apps is I just want to talk about some of the basic things that you can do with your phone that I mentioned last week. Maps of your surrounding area, and some apps do offer the option to save them offline, which is very useful because then, like I said, you don't need a 4G connection or Wi-Fi or anything to navigate. Keep in mind, though, when you store maps offline on your phone, it's going to work a little different than GPS. Yes, you will be able to pull up a map. You'll be able to zoom in and out. You'll be able to locate certain areas. It will take up space. So maybe you don't have an entire world map and every road on it loaded into your phone, but mostly just the areas that you frequent often and surrounding areas and the routes and states and counties, cities, towns, whatever, along your way to maybe certain critical points, such as a bug-out location or bug-out locations in different directions. You got to go through your plan and figure out what the most important maps you need if you're really trying to cut down and save space for other things that you may want to load on there. But just like, unlike the GPS, you're not going to have a moving dot, which will update you directly through satellite and not, or through phone carrier, whatever. You're not going to have that. So it's important that you can look at a map, read it, know which directions you're going, and follow along, kind of almost like with your finger, and know what the next turns or the next part of your route is coming up based on the map that you're looking at. So get used to maybe doing that on your phone. Maybe if you have a paper map or something, be able to write directions off that, because some people are not familiar with doing that anymore, and they go to do it again because maybe that's what they used to do many, many years ago. But you're so dependent on GPS just telling you exactly what to do and following a dot, and it tells you exactly where you are and how many feet until your next turn. Maybe that's some skill that maybe you want to practice. Looking at a map on your phone, tablet, or a paper map and getting used to finding your way to some place, navigating it on the map. And there's also a lot of survival apps that you can also use, and that's what this episode is going to primarily be about. I'm going to get into those. But again, I'm just recapping what I mentioned last week towards the end of the episode when it came to how useful your cell phone can be, mostly your smartphone. Another thing you can do is an e-copy of your car owner's manual. You never know. It also saves room in your glove compartment to maybe keep your kit. Owner's manuals can be a little bulky, and if you have a way to download it in a PDF format, the car owner manual for your vehicle, you can actually search, and you don't have to scroll through every page. So it's not like you're searching through pages of images. It is an image, but it's a PDF that's searchable. You can even make notes in there, too, if you have an app on your phone that allows you to do that. Also, make a special folder to keep all this stuff in if you like. And in that special folder, keep any of your emergency contacts, a copy of your driver's license, important documents, birth certificate, maybe your social security card, if you feel comfortable doing that, copy of your insurance card, a copy of your current registration. All those are a good idea to keep in your phone. along with other contacts and everything. So it's just kind of like your emergency folder. What if you lose your wallet? Do you have a record of your credit card numbers? Maybe write them down in a secret code so you can have them in your kit and also in your phone. A special folder with just all that information can be very, very, very handy. And then another thing I'd like to mention are survival books that you can download. Everything from, we'll say, survival manuals to the Army and military training field manuals. And those field manuals are free. You can download them in PDF online. You can get them for almost everything. First aid, wilderness survival, combat, evasion, escape, cleaning guns, small arms, you name it. You can get these manuals, and they're very valuable. And they're great for training, great reference. Another thing you can do is if you purchase books and you get them in PDF format, I'm going to go through a bunch of sites as this episode goes on where to get free books. And survival books are great. If you own a copy in PDF or you're able to convert a copy of your book into PDF, maybe you have a couple favorites, you can do that. Of course, converting your own, if you bought a survival book that's pretty big, scanning it into a PDF can be very time consuming, but you can do that if you'd like. Now, some great books that I always have on my devices are, and there's only a few that I really go to, which are my go-to books. One of them is Where There Is No Doctor. I'm going to get into that. Another one is the SAS Survival Manual. I do have the PDF version in that, but if I was scanning it from the hard copy book into a PDF, I would probably eliminate a lot of sections in there that may either be redundant based on other books or knowledge that I already know that I really don't need multiple pages or a whole chapter about. The other one I keep on me is Peterson's Guide to Edible Wild Plants in North America. And so those are the ones that I stick to, that I make sure on all my devices. If I have room, I do add some others, and on one of my devices, because I do have the extra room, I do keep a couple extra books on there, which I'm not going to get into detail about what they are because it's part of my plan and part of my survival methods, but I'm not going to announce them over the air. Now, as far as the apps, I mentioned the apps, and this is what primarily this episode is about. Your smartphone is capable of storing apps that we talked about, like the SAS Survival Manual. There's an app for the SAS Survival Manual now. So you can download that app if you have room. The PDF version of the book is just as good. I have not used the app. From the reviews and the research that I've done, it's very popular. Seems like it's an app. It's really, I guess, as they say, one of the best and only apps you will ever need, because it really does cover everything from making fires to camps to foraging, surviving in extreme conditions. It's very thorough and detailed. It's got illustrations. It's got tutorials. It's got tips along the way. It includes a number of tools like text-to-Morse code encoders and a sun compass. Of course, use it, just practice some of those skills as well so that you're proficient at them and they're very effective. Don't think that just because you have the book, you're going to know what to do and be able to do it when you need it. So downloading that app, I think, could be very beneficial. Regardless of, I think, what level of survival expert you are, that seems to be the number one app that really covers a lot. It also has a lot of videos, photos. It's got like a quiz questions. Just kind of, I guess, mentally exercise you. And from what a lot of people say is, according to this, that the SAS app does not require any internet or connection service to be used, which means it can be used when you really need it in a fit hits the shan situation without signal. So it seems like it's stored internally in your phone, as we were talking about, and that's important, so that therefore it is offline, which means it does not depend on you having service in order to use it. Another great app, which I played around with the GPS on my phone, just in Maps, without the location on. I've done it with and without signal in areas with bad signal and all that. You can download a map through like Google Maps or any of the other GPS apps that are out there. What I notice is that pretty much whichever way your phone is oriented, that's which way it's going to orient your screen. So unless you really zoom out and know a little bit about your surroundings and your area that you're in, or familiar with the roads in that area, you really don't know which way is north and south. So if you have a reference point, you know that on a certain road, that one runs east-west, and the ones off that run north-south, another one off that one runs east-west, another one runs north-south, you're fine. You can figure it out from there. We're talking about times when you can't see the sun during certain times of the year and certain times of the day when the sun's low in the sky, winter, and all that. Sometimes you get a false reading as to which way east and west are, during certain times of the day, especially if you don't really know what time of day it is. So another app that's very handy is a smart compass. And it's really easy to use. Any novice, beginner could open up this app and use it. And it's great because especially if you don't want to constantly be looking down at a compass, it allows you to really follow direction and all that based on where you are, and not just on roads, but even on terrain. It's really easy, and it even has like this, I guess they call it an augmented reality display, which is pretty cool. You do have to hold it, your smartphone up to the horizon while it just does like a real-time video from your camera or something is overlaid with the compass heading, and it gives you landmarks to walk to. You don't have to constantly be rechecking your orientation and all that. So it's really handy to use, even as like a field compass. As far as how practical is it a map compass, I could imagine it could work. I don't know if it works with like overlays or anything like that, the way like a clear map compass would work in order to orient a map and all that. But for direction, it seems like it's pretty good. And it's really not bad. So those are two of the most important apps so far that I find in some of my research. Now, if you have a field book and you can convert it, or you have a PDF version of it for plants like edible wilds, that's great. My recommendation is Peterson's Guide to Edible Wild Plants, the North American edition. Now, it's the only one I think Peterson really makes as far as a lot of the edibles. I don't know of other editions or volumes of it that he's written for other places in the world. And it doesn't necessarily touch on a lot of the arid or remote areas of the country, particularly west and in the deserts and all that. It seems to focus on the North American areas, from, probably the Midwest to the East Coast. And, from as far north as, we'll say that, Maine, New Hampshire, New England area, all the way down to, like, we'll say the Louisiana, Florida area, which I'm sure that, in parts of Mexico and stuff like that, you'd find some similar things. Same thing with north of that into Canada. You'd probably find some similar plants that may be in the book, but it primarily focuses on that region of the United States, so it doesn't really have much more. Now, there is an app, though, and this app you can download in your phone. So it's called Wild Edibles app, or the Wild Edibles app, Wild Edibles. And it's good for if it hits the Shan, zombie apocalypse type thing, and you have no food or resources. It's better than some of the apps that you have to photograph, and then it researches a library online to then identify the plant, and then it'll tell you whether it's edible or not. So you're not just walking around. Again, this works offline as far as I know, and it's really got like, it's only maybe about 200 wild plants, descriptions and photos, and a bunch more in there, but it does seem to work offline. I'm sure that with any app, there's probably updates that you will have to be online for. So if they add to it or if they do any revisions or anything, then you will have to be online to update that. On my mobile devices, one of them is always online, another one is always offline. So once these apps are on there, it never goes online again. It's just part of my plan. So whatever's on them is on them. When I get another new phone, then the one phone is completely reset, the old one completely reset, completely erased, all this other stuff, reformatted, and it becomes the new offline phone that I load all these apps onto again, and that's the other time when the only time that phone's online, and then it's completely offline after that. Yeah, it's got a bunch of different plants and all that is part of it, but I could imagine that would need updates. That one's available both for Apple iOS platform and Android. Now, the other app that I was talking about, the Smart Compass, as far as I know, is only available for Android. And I forgot to mention the SAS Survival Manual. That is available for both Android and Apple iOS platforms. So you have to check your store, either your Google Play Store or your Apple Store, to be able to find those apps. Well, that music means we are ready for a brief timeout. I'm Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. You are listening to Are You Ready Radio. Stick around. I'll be right back. Find Are You Ready on Facebook and Instagram at Are You Ready Radio. You can also visit our home on the web. Just go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the program's link. If you missed the live show, you can listen to the show's archives on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Deezer, and many more, including our home on Spreaker. When a disaster happens, are you ready? Do you have the supplies you need to keep you and your family safe and survive? The Zombie Outpost store in Wilmington, Ohio, at Cedar Creek Flea Market, stocks quality gear you need to be ready for the next emergency or even a camping trip. Visit zombieoutpoststore.com for location and hours. Check out our assortment of essentials you need when the next disaster happens. Go to zombieoutpoststore.com. Get 10% off at checkout when you mention Are You Ready Radio. Be ready and be prepared.
In this digital society, making connections is quickly becoming a lost art form. Yet, if you are a small business owner, building your network is the only way you can get ahead. Can these skills be learned? You bet they can. Read Nose to Nose Networking. No nonsense, in-person networking tips from a master. Who's the master? Well, who better to teach networking and friend-building skills than a golden retriever? The author, Melanie Hope, takes the antics of Abigail and translates them into the human experience. Through Abby, you will learn how to set your intention, build a network, and get into and out of conversations with grace. If you love the Dog Abby segments on Counterculture-Wise Radio, you will love Nose to Nose Networking even more. Find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hard copy, Kindle, and Nook. Visit counterculturewise.com for direct links.
Greetings and salutations, Counterculture-Wise listeners. This is Maximilian von Riegelbieser inviting you and yours to listen to me and mine. Join me, my sisters Abby and Fritzy, and my weekly guests, my father Jim and Mumsy Melanie, for Counterculture-Wise.
Max, it's not your show!
And we're not your guests, Max. We're the hosts. You may want to rein it in a little bit, buddy.
Very well. Tune in every Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific at counterculturewise.com for our amazing live variety show. You can even chat with us. If you ask me, though, it should be called Counterculture Max.
Counterculture Wise! Radio with heart in mind.
Got a spare tire around that waist? Is your muffin top over the top? Do you binge eat uncontrollably? We are the government, and we are here to help you. Here at our free FEMA weight loss camp, we have numerous ways to help you shed those unsightly, unwanted pounds. FEMA, or Fatties Eating Mitigated, automatically has a communist-style weight loss czar that specializes in centralized weight loss planning and communal extended fasting programs to shed that fat away in no time. Skin and boned means extra toned is the motto. Just remember, there is no way you can do it on your own. We will forcefully assist you into compliance. Failure is not an option in this utopian wonderland. How fantastic. Typical workout regimes include digging ditches and restocking them with dirt, building railways and more. Get life skills while you get lean. How do you join? Simple. Recite the Constitution in a public commons, or violate the Patriot Act that includes simple misdemeanors. It's really that easy to get your own fenced-in slice of Americana. Stop being a fatty. The state is your daddy.
If you like what you are listening to, we appreciate your support. A small contribution from you, the listeners, can continue to help bring you such content and help keep things going here, even if it's just $1 a month. Keep in mind, though, in the spirit of prepping, we believe in redundancy, so it's better to have more than one, but every little bit helps pay the bills. Go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the Support the Show link. You can make a one-time or monthly contribution in any dollar amount. And again, thank you for your support and listening. You are listening to Are You Ready Radio with Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. And welcome back, everyone. I'm Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. You are listening to Are You Ready Radio. It's a wonderful evening, or whenever you're listening to us. On this episode, we are talking about the EDC and the smartphone EDC, or how valuable your smartphone is in your EDC, I should say. We've already discussed the EDC last week, so if you missed that, go back and take a listen. This week is about how to use your smartphone as part of your EDC and how valuable it really is. And before the break, we were talking kind of a recap of what I mentioned towards the end of last week's broadcast about your smartphone being used offline to store maps, or storing maps on your phone offline so you don't have to rely on a signal or internet to be able to use them, how to use it as for navigation, as well as different survival apps you can load on there, copy of your car's manual, emergency documents, ID cards, stuff like that, and saving ebooks. Mentioned a couple ebooks, so if you missed that, go back and listen to the first half of this show. And I also mentioned a couple of the apps so far that you can install on your phone. And again, this is just on your phone, and your phone is normally on you all the time. Normally, you leave your home with your wallet, your keys, and your phone. I mean, those are the three things that most people leave their homes with. So anyway, on with the apps. And most of these are available on both Android and iOS Apple platforms. So some of the apps so far are like the Edible Wild Plants, the SAS Survival Manual, and the Smart Compass. So you have your survival stuff, you have your food set up, you have direction navigation set up. Now, although the SAS Manual does touch on first aid, it's always good, to have something specific that may go into a little more depth. It may go into depth a little more, I should say. So the Red Cross has an app that you can get. It's First Aid by the American Red Cross app. Nice and easy to remember. So if you need to just brush up a little bit, if already maybe you're surfing first aid or very savvy in it, it's great for your basic skills when it comes to first aid. It's really it's structured with very easy to learn and execute first aid skills for an emergency situation. On the everyday, it really includes simple videos as well, step-by-step instructions for many emergencies like pool, drowning, choking, heart attacks, and of course stuff can be applied to survival situations as well. it just burns and cuts. And it doesn't really go into a lot of the major trauma stuff from what I understand. But you can click, I guess they have a prepper version. It's in the beta phase from the research I did, and there's a prepare icon in the app somewhere that you can click. I haven't downloaded it on mine yet. I was going to play with it before I did this. I didn't really get a chance. I can only really go by the reviews and the research that I see here. But it's the American Red Cross, or Get First Aid by American Red Cross app, and that's for both Apple iOS and Android. Now again, most of these first aid skills are covered in the SAS manual. Same thing with plants from those two different apps. So the whole point is not to completely load your phone up with all these apps, just like the goal of making your EDC is not to load up your kit with everything that's on the main list. This is just the research. You decide what you need based on your skills and what you may need based on your surroundings and everyday environment that you're in. So another app that they have is Knots in 3D. So if you haven't learned basic survival knots, load this app and learn from it. It's one thing to watch someone on YouTube or in those videos somewhere online that have, like, the two different colored ropes, and you watch them do the video. They make it look real easy no matter how slow they go. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. Some folks just can't quite get the knots to work right, even watching those videos. I played around with this one, and it's great because there's some complicated knots that, even though I know how to tie, I don't really remember them all. And so I'm a little rusty on some of them because they're just not knots I use every day. So I was able to look up some knots and play around with this app, and it made it really clear, even if I didn't know what I was doing or have done it before, with exactly how to tie them, and it makes it really easy. I would recommend this app to learn knot tying with, maybe not necessarily the quick in a survival situation have to look up a knot and how to tie it type deal. But it will teach you how to make almost any kind of knot, step-by-step 3D instructions and everything. So you can learn about knots. It's a good way. It also goes through, if I remember right, there are like other related knots, like recommendations and stuff like that. And it tells you about, like, their different weaknesses, their strengths, and different things to look at when it comes to a knot. So it's a great book. Much better than just a paper illustration or a chart of knots. I'm sure you've seen many of you have probably seen those where you could go into a seafood restaurant and sometimes there's something on the wall of all the different marine knots and different knots and stuff. And you look at it and you're just like, how do people even know how to do this? I mean, you can't tell. So that is a great way to really learn the knots. But again, I recommend using it as a learning tool. And of course, it's on your phone. If you really need to look something up, you can. I don't think it would really be one of those load the app and use it in a hurry up, you need to get something secured as you're falling out of somewhere, or hanging off a cliff type app. I think that it's important to learn a series of knots that are very handy, learn some of the basics, and be very good at tying them. And once you're highly skilled in those, explore other knots. I kind of break down knots in like the category of like primary, secondary, tertiary knot categories. A few knots that you may use all the time, followed by a few knots that are good to know in certain situations should you need them, followed by knots that this may come in handy one day. And then there's that other category of knots that's just like, I may never use this. It's cool to know how to tie it, but you never know. Maybe I should learn how to do it. So any knot app should be good. That's just one that I recommend. And, most phones have this feature. I'm not a big fan of this next app that I'm going to talk about, though, because it does require that you're online. Now, as far as the Knot app, I don't know whether it is good offline. It doesn't seem to take up a lot of space. I'd have to look at my phone maybe on the next break if I get a chance to see what, how many like
megabytes or whatever it takes up as far as storage. It didn't seem to take up a lot. I don't know if it's just because there's not a lot of information, but I can imagine because of the animated step-by-step videos in it that it would take up a lot more room than I believe it really does. So something leads me to believe that this is not an offline app that stores all the information in your phone. And just like this next one that I'm going to talk about, WeatherBug, there's many, many weather apps out there. However, none of them are completely offline because you can't store what the weather's going to be in a month or a year from now in your phone. But a WeatherBug app is great because just knowing what the weather is, I think that if you just have your regular cell service, most of it's included in there. It's kind of part of the way your phone works, so I don't really feel the need to get another app and waste space loading it. And most of you may have a weather app. If not, you have a browser. You can just pull up the weather for the area that you're in. And sometimes, in most cases, see like the 10-day forecast on it, as well as what it's doing at that current moment. So, obviously, if you're outside and it's raining, you don't need to be told that. But it'll tell you what temperatures to expect, when it may stop raining, when it may start raining, what conditions are coming up, and what conditions to expect. So you can kind of plan around that. The weather apps are going to be in like a real time, and that's what WeatherBug is. It's an app that keeps you up to date in real time for local weather. And you know, they say it's great for power outages and natural disasters and so much more. It has push notification alerts, real-time data, interactive maps, and all that. I think that just a simple browser like Chrome or on Apple Safari will give you all that information. I don't see where installing another app to take up space or run and put more drain on your battery is really necessary. But it was recommended in some of the research that I did, and it seems like it's a good idea if you don't have a phone that has a weather app on it. I think it's just such a specific app, kind of like the compass, but I think that the weather app is just such one of those unitaskers that I don't see it's really worth taking the extra space in your phone, because that space could be used for so much more valuable information that you may want, and there's other apps on your phone that already do that and much more. Another app I do want to get into is an emergency radio app like a police scanner, and there's so many out there. Find one that you can tune in your local EMS, fire, if you can, police. Some of them have Coast Guard, ham frequencies. You can at least listen. NOAA weather bands, they're all in there. So if you don't want to carry a walkie-talkie, which some people do as part of their everyday carry, but that's something I have in my get-home bag. If I really need to have a scanner or anything like that, I do rely on the app on my phone. It's a great idea. You can kind of get a sense of what's actually happening live as far as police, EMS, fire, and all that. Like I said, some of them have air traffic, train, NOAA weather bands, Coast Guard, ham radios, and a lot more frequencies on there. So, of course, it's designed only for listening. As far as the police, EMS, fire dispatchers, you can get them for different cities, counties, towns, state police, and all that. What I have found with a lot of the police frequencies, they are not online as much as they were when I first installed the app. The reason being, a lot of the police frequencies have moved to a digital band and they're not broadcasting those. I believe most departments now are doing that, more so for the element of surprise, not to tip people off. But I mean, even though they have special ops channels that they go on to for certain things, it seems like, I guess, they just decided to keep it more on the DL and don't want people listening to it for whatever reason. But most fire and EMS are still on there. If they're broadcasting their digital bands out onto the service or not, or if they're still on an analog band, then you can still get them. And you can also program into your radios as well if you have, walkie-talkies, ham, or something like that, which I can do a whole other episode on, which I think I may have done. If not on this platform during the relaunch this year, I have done it in the past with my co-host, and I've definitely done it on the Legacy platform where I first started. But I also have a great YouTube video out there about it. So how to program your radios, how to find the frequencies, how to put them on your radio, and how to use your radio and all that. So check that out. It's a very basic introductory level video. Nothing fancy. It's something you could do whether you just have the radio or you have a program cable in your laptop. So just go to Are You Ready? Look for the Tips from the Bunker series, and you will see, look for communications. I think our communications segment that I did on there. And you'll see a bunch of radios and the laptop and all that in front of me. And I teach you how to program your walkie-talkies for that. Back to this radio app, though, the Emergency Radio Scanner app. It's a police scanner app. One of them, the one that I have, is made by Edgerift, if I remember right, or Edgerift. And you can also push the nearby button on the app. And if you want to turn your GPS on, it'll use your GPS location to find all the available frequencies to listen to in your area. So you don't necessarily have to type in a particular county or city or whatever state. It'll automatically, when you have your GPS on using your current location, just push the nearby button. It'll give you those frequencies. You can add them to your favorites so that they're there to constantly monitor if you want. So in my favorites, I have probably about 6 different channels that I can just pull up nice and easy, close to where I got a certain family that lives throughout the country, one where I always vacation and camp a lot, and another one, of course, for home. Those are all on my favorites list, and I can just kind of pop in and out of those. I don't have to constantly search the endless list of every department, every scanner, every location around the country, and all that. Came in very handy during certain storm seasons to kind of know where emergency crews are and where they're going. And no matter which platform you're on, you can find a scanner app. The one that I have is for Android. That's a platform I run. But, of course, there's police scanner apps. They're most commonly called, even though it's just all frequency scanners, are available for both iOS, and there's others out there for Android. That's pretty much the gist of the scanner app. Along with that, I noticed in my research that another one was not mentioned, which is very handy when it comes to communication, and that's called Zello. The Zello app I first found out about during one of the hurricanes. I believe it may have been Katrina or one of them quite a few years ago, where it was really the only means for some folks that were hit really hard to communicate when their cell phone signals were down. And they were able to have, people would listen to their channel and that they set up to talk to each other in that area, and use that to communicate with the Cajun Navy and other people outside, where if they needed help or something and they couldn't get a cell phone signal or anything like that, for some reasons they'll use such little bandwidth or whatever, but it actually worked through the towers to communicate, and it works almost like a walkie-talkie. So you can either do it as a big group walkie-talkie chat, you can set up your own private groups, you can be a part of a group. It's a very handy app that I keep on mine. I've used it for a number of different things, so especially over longer distances, great distances, where radio may not reach, especially if you don't have a license to be able to transmit for miles and miles and miles, or not even have the know-how to do it, or the equipment to do it with. You can use the Zello app. It's free to download, and you can set up a whole walkie-talkie network for your whole family on their cell phones, and just call it whatever your family is. Make it a private walkie-talkie chat room. And if an emergency happens and everybody has a walkie-talkie, way for everybody to communicate and know what everybody's doing, so that there's no crazy texting, calling, and all that, especially when the signal is so weak that a normal text or phone call will not work. This app seemed to do amazingly well, and this was going back quite a few years. And so I can imagine now it's even better. So that is an actual walkie-talkie feature, a radio feature that you can, it's a two-way talk. All right, so another app, moving on away from communications, but back to more navigation. And there are 2 different apps that I'm going to recommend on this one. In my research, they're recommending this Motion X GPS, from About.com. It supposedly they claim, or not from About.com, but I guess About.com calls it one of the best outdoor apps, which allows you to save offline topographical maps from all around the world on your phone. Offline storage is great. Stores it right in the phone, so you don't have to depend on being connected and having signal to be able to use it. So you don't have to find it on a cloud. You don't have to have a working signal, Wi-Fi, anything like that. So it's on your phone. So topographical maps are very handy, especially when you can relate them. It relates you mostly to the terrain, elevation, steepness, and all that, which road maps don't show you. And you want to be able to also have an overlay of roads on the map as well, which is why I have not played with this Motion X GPS app yet. And I was a little weary about it because it says GPS, and right there you think that you need to have your location on and all that in order for this to work, which you don't want to do in some situations, or it may not work in others. So they say it's an excellent tool that saves you from having to rely on cell connectivity and service to access maps, especially when you need it the most. Motion X also allows you to track your trek so it does rely on your GPS, so that if you were to ever get lost in the woods or outdoors, you'll be able to see the app where you came from and reroute back to your base camp or previous location. Okay, that's great. It's also available on both Android and Apple platforms. Not bad. Here's the thing, though. Again, it's relying on your GPS. Even though the maps are stored offline, that has some positives to it. There's another one that is offline topo maps. This is the one that I have. If you go to a video where I talk about the zombie net, and I'm showing you a tablet that I've designed for bug out or get home situation. It's a survival. I call it the zombie net. There's a lot more to it than just some of these apps and downloads and offline stuff that I have in there. So definitely check that out on the Tips from the Bunker series. Very valuable information in that one, which I could probably do a whole episode on that, which I may have done already. Everything runs together after a while when you do this for so long. But it does not rely on your GPS. It also references streets as well as the terrain together. So I prefer that one over this Motion X GPS app from what I've learned about it so far. Now, again, I have not tried it, this Motion X GPS app. But I don't really want to have to rely on location, GPS, or anything that not only will run my battery down a lot faster, but it will also, could give away my location for someone that knows what they're doing when you may not want them to know where you are. Again, it also doesn't rely on a signal from a carrier or internet for it to work. So it seems like Motion X GPS kind of combines both sides of this. You can turn on your GPS. It's interactive. It'll track you. It's great if you get lost. Now, there's other apps out there that do that. I don't know if this really has. I mean, it says offline topographical maps for around the world. That's great. I don't know if you get to select which areas you want or if it just dumps it all in there. Whereas the offline topo maps that I have app, I was able to store just certain areas. I don't want the entire world. May never be in Africa when the fit hits the shan. Same thing with China or Korea or even remote areas of Canada. So I don't need the entire world in my phone when it comes to topographical maps. I want just the areas that I'm more concerned about, that I'm most likely to be in, and then some surrounding areas, probably within 100 miles of the furthest place I'd ever probably be. And that's good enough for me. Okay? Now, as far as some of these other apps that I was talking about, there are some hiking and off-road and trail apps that you can download. Those are the ones that, yes, you can rely on your GPS for. They're great for hiking, camping, exploring, and all that. Again, it relies on the GPS. They take up a little more space than some of the other apps that I've been talking about from what I've seen so far. Again, I have not loaded the Motion X GPS app, so I'm not really sure how big that is and how much it dumps into your device. But if you're looking for an app that will just map your hike and where you're going, there's plenty of others out there for that. I would probably recommend, though, finding an app that not just has the typographical maps, but also overlays the streets on it, so that if you are in a setting where the streets are still passable, usable, drivable, something like that, and you may not be familiar with the area, you kind of know what you're in for. It's very good to know when you're going to be coming up to like steep inclines, declines, different terrain around the roads and all that, so that the roads are a great reference point if the roads still exist, but the topographical map is great for everything off the road. Or even if you're not familiar with the roads, you kind of know what you're in for. So, maybe you've never driven through Pennsylvania before, the Route 80 route where it can get very hilly and all that, or maybe even through areas of West Virginia, and maybe there's a snowstorm coming, and maybe you know that if you are on steep hills, this may not be the time to be driving them if you've never been through there before. You can get yourself stuck. The chances of having an accident could increase, and it's more difficult, especially in the winter. Now, as far as other survival apps, there's a couple more that I'll mention. Actually, we are coming up to a break, so I'm going to hold off on these. We'll cut to the break early so we don't run out of time in the middle of any of them. The music's going to kick off in a minute anyway. We're just going to kick this break off sooner. I'm Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. You are listening to Are You Ready Radio. When we get back, more about survival apps and how to use your smartphone as a valuable part of your EDC. Stick around, we're going to pay some bills.
Find Are You Ready on Facebook and Instagram at Are You Ready Radio. You can also visit our home on the web. Just go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the program's link. If you missed the live show, you can listen to the show's archives on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Deezer, and many more, including our home on Spreaker. When a disaster happens, are you ready? Do you have the supplies you need to keep you and your family safe and survive? The Zombie Outpost store in Wilmington, Ohio, at Cedar Creek Flea Market stocks quality gear you need to be ready for the next emergency or even a camping trip. Visit zombieoutpoststore.com for location and hours. Check out our assortment of essentials you need when the next disaster happens. Go to zombieoutpoststore.com. Get 10% off at checkout when you mention Are You Ready Radio. Be ready and be prepared.
In this digital society, making connections is quickly becoming a lost art form. Yet, if you are a small business owner, building your network is the only way you can get ahead. Can these skills be learned? You bet they can. Read Nose to Nose Networking. No nonsense, in-person networking tips from a master. Who's the master? Well, who better to teach networking and friend-building skills than a golden retriever? The author, Melanie Hope, takes the antics of Abigail and translates them into the human experience. Through Abby, you will learn how to set your intention, build a network, and get into and out of conversations with grace. If you love the Dog Abby segments on Counterculture-Wise Radio, you will love Nose to Nose Networking even more. Find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hard copy, Kindle, and Nook. Visit counterculturewise.com for direct links.
Hey, how you doing? This is Magic Pierce inviting you and yours to listen to some good friends of mine that have a show too. Did you really think my daddy is the only one that just runs his mouth all the time and that's the only thing I listen to? No, it's not. I got a show I listen to on Sundays. Join host Max and his co-host, my hottie Fritzy, and of course my good friend Abby on Counterculture-Wise, Sundays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern. They have their own human guests, Melanie and Jim, each week. They don't meow a lot, but you get what they're saying. Now let me tell you, you have to go to counterculturewise.com. Use your paws to play with the mouse and scroll down to the on-the-air button on the right to hear their show. Just click on that. After that, watch them on Periscope like I do. Daddy gives me a little mouse to play with, and I get farts the whole time. It's a great show. Check it out. counterculturewise.com. If you don't tune in, I get cuckoos on you.
Thank you so much for that ringing endorsement, Magic. It warms the orange hearts of me and Abby and the gray heart of Fritzy to hear you say such amazing things about our show. I'm pretty sure that Mumsy and Father have pink hearts, so we will assume their hearts are warmed too.
Forget about it. I got you guys. Good peoples.
Got a spare tire around that waist? Is your muffin top over the top? Do you binge eat uncontrollably? We are the government and we are here to help you. Here at our free FEMA weight loss camp, we have numerous ways to help you shed those unsightly, unwanted pounds. FEMA, or Fatties Eating Mitigated, automatically has a communist-style weight loss czar that specializes in centralized weight loss planning and communal extended fasting programs to shed that fat away in no time. Skin and boned means extra toned is the motto. Just remember, there is no way you can do it on your own. We will forcefully assist you into compliance. Failure is not an option in this utopian wonderland. How fantastic. Typical workout regimes include digging ditches and restocking them with dirt, building railways and more. Get life skills while you get lean. How do you join? Simple. Recite the Constitution in a public commons or violate the Patriot Act that includes simple misdemeanors. It's really that easy to get your own fenced-in slice of Americana. Stop being a fatty. The state is your daddy.
If you like what you are listening to, we appreciate your support. A small contribution from you, the listeners, can continue to help bring you such content and help keep things going here, even if it's just $1 a month. Keep in mind, though, in the spirit of prepping, we believe in redundancy, so it's better to have more than one, but every little bit helps pay the bills. Go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the Support the Show link. You can make a one-time or monthly contribution in any dollar amount. And again, thank you for your support and listening. You are listening to Are You Ready Radio with Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. And welcome back, everyone. I'm Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. You are listening to Are You Ready Radio? And coming through our episode here of our smartphone is part of our EDC. And how handy it can be. And looking at it the way most people probably never looked at your smartphone and how valuable it is in a survival situation. So here's another app I want to get right to. Keep going through our list, and the research that I found here is Burpin Pocket Survival. Now, I have not used this one yet. It's kind of one of those, it'll record your last location and pick up when you have your phone signal back. So the way it kind of is built here is the handy app that will record the exact location your last signal was picked up with your phone. And this way, if you might need, let's see, what else about this thing? Oh, so for any kind of situation where you might need service. So if you're going through, I guess, areas where there's bad signal, you're not getting any better signal, you're not able to call home, you're not able to call for help, it uses your phone's built-in compass to guide you back to the place you last had signal. So you don't have to mess with maps or anything else. And this way, you can go back to where you had a signal, make your emergency phone call, hopefully wait for help and rescue. I would say this is more on the rescue side of survival than it is for surviving long term. Now, there's another survival guide app called the Army Survival Guide. I would say it has it's pretty much something straight out of the Army manuals. Includes things like avoiding enemy, how to avoid capture, fighting off rabid animals, and all this other stuff. And it's also very useful in certain situations. I guess it would be more like the SAS Survival Manual and others. It teaches you how to make shelters in bad conditions, killing and dressing your next kill for game. And it also even goes into like making your own soap and other stuff. So, again, very handy. Not a bad app. Again, useful information. Also available on both Apple and Android platform. As far as that boot print pocket survival, where it puts you back to your last point you had signal, let me just go back here. I don't think it's on both. Okay, that one's only available on Apple as of now. So that pinpoint where your last signal, where you last had signal, that's only on Apple. Let's see. Animal tracking apps. This looks like a handy one. So if you're not familiar with animal tracks, this could be very handy, especially when trying to identify tracks, not just for danger, but what other types of animals might be in your area that may not be a threat to you, but a source of food. So being able to track animals is a great skill. And this also helps you if you know how to build traps or you want to hunt or anything like that. Having a way to track the animal, you know their patterns, you know where they normally hide out, you know where they normally wander and different trails and stuff. You know what animals use those trails. You may not want to waste a lot of time trying to catch a raccoon when there's plenty of rabbit around. There's other game out there. So being able to identify the tracks to find out what kind of animals are out there to eat, very handy. And again, like I first mentioned, for danger. So, great. It not only does that, it identifies animal droppings, animal calls, and all that. So, another handy app. That one is. It's on both platforms. For a second, there's just one line there. That's also available for not just Apple, but also Android. Or not just Android, but also Apple, I should say. And there's a lot of other survival apps out there when it comes to survival manuals. Another one I came across is like the Ultimate Survival Manual. That's on Apple. There's two other apps I'll mention that were in the research, and then a few others that I'd like to throw out there that I think are handy. Almost like kind of can help replace or be used to kind of put together certain bits of information and stuff, or replace items in your kit. One of them is the next two here, part of the research was a free app that comes from FEMA, of course. A lot of useful features. You can even use your phone to report a disaster, as they call it. So, it does have some benefits, I guess. More disaster awareness than anything else. I think that everything else would be pretty much, already covered in another survival manual and many of the others that are out there. And I think these other apps would probably be a lot more useful than FEMA could come up with. But go through it, test it, see. It's on iOS and Android, so pick your platform, download it if you want. Of course, in the research, the only worry that some people have is whether or not they will track you post-collapse. Well, yeah, I can see that. But I guess it depends on your circumstances. Maybe they will. Let's see. There's what's called the ICE app. It's called ICE in Case of Emergency app. So the purpose to this app is if you ever end up in the ER, like the emergency room or some other kind of emergency, this app will help the nurse or practitioner. They can access this to know more about you. So this will help them treat you faster. So things like your date of birth, blood type, and other options that you can put in there could one day save your life. So I guess it's no different than a little card that you would have in your wallet with all your important information on it. This app does it as well. So I guess as long as your phone's intact, they could probably help you. Here's a stupid app that I don't find any value in installing, but it's called Flashlight Android plus Android. So I guess Android thinks that there's a way to make your screen a lot brighter to be used as a flashlight. Now, if you have a screen on your smartphone, most likely you also have an LED light as part of your camera. Use that instead. It's a lot brighter. It's a flashlight. So I don't think you need to waste space on an app, especially if your phone already has a built-in flashlight. If not, maybe that's an item that you carry in your EDC. But your phone can replace your flashlights. That's one of those apps that I guess could replace an item in your EDC. And it is a rechargeable flashlight. It's also rechargeable information if you're connected to something that has signal. So if you have service or internet, it's also radio. So your phone could be used as a lot of other things. Android also makes not just a wonderful flashlight app, woohoo, but they also make a don't download the flashlight app. It's stupid. Android also does have, though, an offline survival manual that you can download, and it's free, and from what they say, it's ad-free. So the online survival manual, it's great basic survival skills. It can be used completely offline, from what I'm reading, and it covers subjects for everything from shelter construction, first aid, survival psychology, and it's just a nice, friendly, user-friendly app that fire building, shelters. It's not really complete, from what people say, but I guess it's a nice basic starting point. Supposedly takes care of about 90% of the needs in most environments. So there you have it. Android has their own little survival manual. And, of course, Evernote is Apple's version, I guess, of that. I believe that there is an Android base on that. Oh, no, that's not a survival app. Supposedly this is a notebook. Oh, that's nice. It's just a cloud-based information and note-taking program. Now, we don't want cloud-based. You can download a notepad. This is where I was going to get to later on after I got done with some of these lists from the research and the survival experts and all that they post all over on the internet. Don't worry about Evernote. It's cloud-based information. You don't need that. Maybe you don't want to share your information on the cloud, or you're afraid that other people are going to access it. Well, get a notepad app. Just a simple notepad. Easy Note is one. I think that's on one of my phones. I'm not too picky about them. But those work pretty well just to be able to jot notes down. So when you go back to the EDC episode and you're like, oh, notebook and pen, yes, that's very handy, but your phone can also do the same job. As far as an app to use, you can save PDF form documents or scans your license and all that in your account, but kind of going along that app that will help if you're in an ER or something like that where it has all your critical information. Maybe just something as simple as like Google Drive. You can also keep a lot of your important documents saved there as well that you can access. And I'm not talking about just survival documents, maybe just like your basic information, your medical information and all of that, and emergency contacts, but information like files that you may need for like work or a project that you're working on. Google Docs is very handy for that. It has almost every Office format. You can store photos and PDFs if you have a Google Drive account. You can download them onto your phone, store them offline, and even use Google Docs offline once those documents are in your phone or tablet or mobile device, that then will upload onto the cloud later with any revisions or changes that you made to them. So very handy app to think of. Let's see. Here's an app that I found that will convert .mobi and .epub or EPUB files on your phone. And so normally it'll take, I guess, your Kindle files and similar big name e-reader apps and convert them to be able to be read on your Android phone. So that may save you. So if you have some of these, like the books and stuff that I mentioned, like Where There Is No Doctor, the SAS Survival Manual, some of the FM manuals that may be in one of those e-reader app formats for like Kindle and similar apps, if you download Litium, Litium for Android, it's a third-party app that allows you to read those files on your mobile phone, again, for Android. So let's see. Final Word is an app too. That's just another recommended notebook app. That looks like it's cloud-based though, so we're going to forget about that one. Like I said, just go for an offline app. So those are just some of the apps that the experts say you should have. I threw some of my recommendations in there as well. Of course, any thoughts, chime in on our Facebook and Instagram page at Are You Ready Radio. I'd love to hear them. So that's a gist of some things that your smartphone can do for you that'll take up a lot less room, not just in your EDC, but also in your get home and bug out bag. So as far as some books I want to mention before we run out of time, I mentioned the SES Survival Manual book. I have that in PDF format that I have in my phone. It was before I realized that they actually came out with an app for it. Now, in the research, though, it didn't say if the app was free for the SES Survival Manual. But I have a whole digital library of prepper books. So everything from the Ranger Handbook to Surviving the End of Days PDF book, Water Purification, Spider Hole Tactics, SES Survival Manual, I mentioned that already, Where There Is No Doctor is one of my favorites. Now, I mentioned the Zombie Net and this tablet thing that I have set up, and I recommended you watch that video. A lot of the material I also have on that is also for like this post-apocalyptic classroom, which now I think I did the video maybe 3 years before everything shut down for the pandemic. So we were in a whole new world of virtual learning, or there was no classroom anymore, and schools kind of worked with technology to get that figured out so that students can stay in school and still learn. I was thinking about something like that way ahead of time, and I built what I call the Doomsday Classroom. And in that, I had all kinds of textbooks for different grades, different subjects, and it wasn't every grade. It maybe had first grade, third grade, fifth grade, and then some algebra, math, a little bit of geometry. It had some basic science, advanced science, and different topics, physics, biology, stuff like that. It had like all the Boy Scout Merit Badge handbooks, the Boy Scout handbook, and it's broken down into categories then. There's also literature, play scripts, books on religion and the occult, books on trade and skills, books on what I consider focused study. So just like you would take electives, when you realize that you have a skill or a certain interest, then there's ways of teaching that. Everything from criminal psychology to wonders of instincts, minds and matters of wild animals, sustainable energy without the hot air is another book that's in there. I'm just going through my catalog now. As far as food and canning, there's stuff there. As far as medical books, of course, there is Where There Is No Doctor, but there's wilderness medicine. There's survival and personal wellness medical manuals, medical survival wound closure manual, healing for pets with alternative medicines, the full FM 2111, 2111, whatever, first aid manual, Army manual, emergency war surgery, ditch medicine, advanced medicine, and then even books on music, just books that have sheet music in it, songs and lyrics, and then books about music, popular music through history, popular composers, lessons in music by certain people, Indian stories and songs from North American Native Americans, cowboy songs and other frontier stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in this thing. Compositions from opera, art books, religious books, trade and skills, you name it. I have a library full of all kinds of digital books because not only are books great to have, they're not just entertaining, they're good to keep your mind occupied, they're good for knowledge and reference, they're good for teaching and learning, and of course, post-apocalyptic classroom, as I called it, which almost became the reality. So when you couldn't get to a library, and what if the internet didn't stay up and was stable the way it was? You never know. All this exists offline and was saved and available if needed. And of course, books on tactics, warfare, and the like. Well, I hope that I helped you seriously think, prepare, and answer the question, are you ready? I'm Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in and the support you give the show. Our guests, the callers, our friends in chat, listeners, clients, customers, everybody at the store, everything. find Are You Ready on Facebook and Instagram at Are You Ready Radio. You can also find us on the web at nickpiercemedia.com. Click on the program's link. Find us on your favorite podcast platforms and on our home on Spreaker. To contribute to the show, go to Nick Pierce Media and click on the Support the Show link. Are You Ready Radio is the official podcast of Zombie Outpost in Wilmington, Ohio, and is an NP Media Group production.